Welcome back, everyone. So, we have come to the final program of the day, the Business Leaders Session. We have invited 7 leaders in the worlds of business and academia to discuss how to collaborate and cultivate entrepreneurial mindsets that can lead the world towards a sustainable future. Let me introduce the speakers now. Chey Chairperson of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Kobayashi Ken, Chairman of the Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry on a video message. Kim Yoon, Chairman of the Korea-Japan Economic Association. Sato Yasuhiro, Vice Chair of the Japan Business Federation. Horie Ari, Founder and CEO of Women's Startup Lab. Kim Yoon, Managing Partner of Sehan Ventures. Kagami Shigeo, Professor of the University of Tokyo. And finally, our moderator is President Fushi Teruo of the University of Tokyo. Welcome, everyone, and Professor Fushi, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for your introduction. And it is indeed a great honor for me to moderate this signatory session today with these distinguished panelists, as already introduced. And so this business leader session, this theme is, as you know, the new horizons for the global economy through collaboration between Korea and Japan and cultivating entrepreneurial mind together. So this is, as already mentioned by Chairman Chey Tae-won in his opening speech, to discuss on how we, Korea and Japan, could make a strong coalition in the area of business development, not only for the two countries, but also for the entire world. So first of all, we'd like to have special remarks by the representatives from both Korea and Japan. First, I would like to have the remark by Chairman Chey, who is the chairman of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So Chairman Chey, please.
Yes, good afternoon. Well, honorable guest, and it is good to see you again. And it is in my earlier speech, I mentioned the historic progress made between Japan and Korea, and this year, we'd like to actually using this moment as a kind of springboard to jump up, and we just let the ship just go, So actually, I suggest that the strong relation between Japan and Korea, and using this moment, and we could make some strong economic collision. So, but probably asking me why between only the two nations. Within the Asian region and beside China, so we are actually second and third largest economies. So that's why, actually, if we keep together and make the certain strong collision, then there is a lot of temptation to the other countries to join us. So anybody who wants to join this economic collision, and if you really think that divided world in these days now, so you can actually think that the US, China, and the EU market is way bigger than ours. So I'll give you the numbers, and US is about $25 trillion GDP, and China is $18 trillion, and the EU, of course, the EU is actually more than about 27 different countries together, but its size is about $16 trillion. So Japan used to be the number 2 in the world, but right now as I can say that the market size is number 4. But its number 4 is way behind its number of only the $5 trillion. Well, Korea is just 1/3 of the Japan market, and $1.7 trillion size. But anyhow, within Asia, we are actually second and third largest economies. So if we get together, so it's about a $7 trillion. Well, we can actually compare to the EU size. But if you think that EU has more than 27 countries, but it's only the 2 countries. If we 2 countries get together, we can actually make some strong commitment for the future progress. It's like systems, rules, and we share that a lot of similar cultures. We had like mind, and we share that democracy, we had market economies. So we are much easier to make the certain rules together. Once we have that rules, not only just that the rule and system matters, we could actually bring that a lot of synergy together. The synergistic effect in our economy is a very important thing. So once we had some successful stories, and it could actually boost our economy. Actually, 2 nations suffer from the low growth rate. So Japan is suffer from more than 20 years and the low growth rate. And Korea, well, we are actually these days, and Korea also suffer from the low growth rate, and we're losing the potential to future growth rate. So that's a kind of problem with our economies. If we get together, so we can actually solve that not only just economical problems. I think that we can suggest 2 others, and one other is the social problems. The 2 nations actually share the same problem, whether we are getting the old society. Problem with the older citizens, and the elder citizens it's a natural thing, but if we're too old, then there is not enough the fresh power from the young generations. That's probably one of the problems, and actually the senior people need to have a lot of take care. So that's another challenge for us. And later on, we can actually talk about startup things, and if we boost up that startup society, so actually, doing that activities separately is not probably has enough size or enough the pulling impact to the other economies or the young generation. So if we really wanted the talent peoples to come in here, we make the head at some kind of size. The size is another attraction for that to the market. Also, not only just the talent pooling, but also that the financial pooling is another sense of the benefit of these ideas. And I can't go over that the synergistic ideas and one by one, but I'll probably have that in a detail. I'll probably have that later on, but I can actually make some example for the synergistic activity. Actually, this idea comes from that Japan side, and the Japan, one of the tourism companies suggests us that we can actually pulling that some of the world tourists to the Japan or the Korea. Actually, we never shared that any visa programs or the tourist program together, but there is a lot of tourists to Japan and Korea, but there is no actually tourism programs share that bring that some of the package things together. So even that kind of thing is we can actually much more booming up our own tourism, and we can actually compare that a lot of different things or the similar things. we can actually emphasize that the different from that what is the difference between that Japan and Korea things, and that's probably another attraction. And we may share that some of the commonality of the two countries too. So that's one of the things, and we can think about. That's easy things, and also we can promote that a lot of wines and the food together. So that's another merit to futures. Also, we can share that the energy transition programs, and not only just that the domestic energy programs. If we bring that our own technology together, I'm sure that we could make some energy solutions to all over the world. Then we can actually combine it together and sales of the energy solution rather than just at the single product, and we can actually make some package together. So not only just the solar matters and the solar energy, also we can actually bring that the wind and also hydro powers, and even we could bring that some nuclear energy to the other countries. So that synergies actually is not only just at the small size of the synergies, but also if we make some approach in the big industry, the semiconductor, EV batteries, not only just the EV battery, more we can actually collaborate with at the EV side. So right now, actually, the automotive industry has some trouble with because that we have really big. We're facing that the big competitor called China, and China has that really equipped with a lot of technology, and also they have a huge market based. So right now our problem is that compared to Korean or the Japan electric vehicle, actually China makes it the similar quality of the EV is actually 30% cheaper than us. So that's the thing. Actually, we have to actually deep into look at that, and we could come up with that some kind of synergies or the co-marketing, share that the supply chain. It could actually we can get a ability to fight back to the EV side. So that's actually the future of the automobile. When I say the automobile, but I actually noticed that EU had another model for like the Airbus model. So they have technology, but they don't have. Each country doesn't have enough market for that the airplane itself. So they share that all those things, and right now, as Airbus is competing with the Boeing, so we could actually bring all those concepts together. So as a future automobile, the solution will be the UAM. It's a large drone, and we could actually using that fly to in a space. So if we combine together, I think that there is a potential for that the UAM. Well, even there is a lot of existing our models as semiconductor, the battery side, and pharmaceuticals and the gene therapies. So there is a lot of other things where we can make this a lot of synergy. Also, the finance is a much more the important matter. So there is a lot of potential on that, and how we can actually capture that the potential. I suggest that we need some joint study on the academic level, also the private sector levels, and then government level too. So someone probably asked me that, well, we already doing that the similar models like CPTPP, APEX, well, there is a RCEP, so there is a lot of similar, the economic bloc model, but doesn't have that much actually leading power. So CPTPP is good, and Japan is, doing a lot of leading laws, and I admire that, but it's not enough, actually. So there is a bunch of the too many countries together, and we don't have actually that much speed on the size of the economic benefits. So if you copy on the EU model start with that Japan and the German and the French together. With the steel and the coal industry. So there is a collision between that the French and the German people together. Then that's the actually starting point, and then they'll bring that the 6 more countries in Europe they together, and they make the EU side. So it's like that. And once we had that certain rule to governing and the systems, then we can actually attract the later on other members. But if you make the too big concept at the first time, that sometimes it doesn't really work, because that everybody has at a different position, and we don't find that any common ground together. So that's the kind of problems, and so I think that this is a kind of right moment to bring this subject, and I'm really happy to have that discuss with this subject in these times. Thanks for the listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So you suggest the kind of working together in between Korea and Japan, and also this looking at this EU model, and then to have a kind of right or larger size of the economy and so on, will be very important for now. So then next I'd like to have the special remark from Chairman Ken Kobayashi, who is the chairman of the Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And that will be given by the video message.
Well, good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ken Kobayashi, the chairman of the Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industries, JCCI. Unfortunately, I cannot take part in the forum myself, but it is profound honor to be giving a keynote address today. Tokyo Forum began in 2019, and every year since has convened around the overarching theme of shaping the future. On behalf of JCCI, I would like to congratulate Tokyo Forum on its 5th anniversary and extended my sincere appreciation to the University of Tokyo and Chey Institute for Advanced Studies for their continuing efforts in making the event such a success. The key theme of Tokyo Forum this year, I understand, is cultivating humanity amid social division and digital transformation, a topic that holds special significance in today's world. The international landscape has witnessed unprecedented transformations, rapid changes and challenges in the last few years. The COVID-19, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Israel-Hamas conflict, the growing rivalry between the United States and China, to name a few. I'm sure you all agree that many issues demand a broader set of potential partners with the added benefit of building stronger relationships. With including global fragmentation and advances in digital technologies, academic institutions must play a leading role in shaping our technological and economic future. For a period of time, relations between Japan and Korea were at their lowest ebb in the post-war era. However, under the strong leadership of Prime Minister Kishida and President Yoon, Japan-Korea relation is stronger and more consequential than ever. With the COVID-19 pandemic having subsided, economic and personal exchanges between the two nations have made a significant recovery. In June this year, JCCI, together with KCCI, held the Japan-Korea Chamber Summit in Busan, Korea, the first such gathering in 6 years. In a joint statement, the two organizations declared that we will promote cooperation and rebuild more resilient supply chains to respond the economic security challenges and to support carbon neutrality. I believe these efforts have already begun to bear fruit. As recently as 2 weeks ago, Japan and Korea announced the establishment of the joint supply network for hydrogen and ammonia on the sidelines of APEC leaders meeting. The two nations also announced new collaborative framework to research and development in quantum technologies, further strengthening economic and security cooperation. I believe this symbolizes future-oriented bilateral relations. Japan and Korea share many other social issues, including a declining birth rate, an aging population, and the challenges of digitization. The industrial sectors in both nations complement each other, and various product supply chains from the food, clothing, to semiconductors are in place. As the two economies have become inseparable, it is vital to press ahead with future-oriented economic cooperation. Let me reiterate that Japan-Korea relation must be reframed as one of cooperation, not competition. In closing, universities and the business community play a crucial role in times of growing disparities, divisions, and social challenges. We must strive to create a sustainable future, break down existing barriers and boundaries, and nurture new generations to live in the future. I hope that the forum will stimulate exchanges between young entrepreneurs and expand horizons for exchanges between the two nations. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Chairman Kobayashi. And it's very nice to hear about the already, between Korea and Japan, already there's, for example, energy initiative in hydrogen and ammonium energy, and as well as the quantum computing, quantum technology alliance. And well, now we'd like to proceed to the panel discussion here. And I'd like to ask first two business leaders here from the viewpoint of rather established business sectors, because the Chairman Chey also suggested the kind of we could do many, do things together at many levels, so that at many levels or many kinds of procedures. So that then, first of all, I would like to ask Chairman Kim Young, who is the chairman of Korea-Japan Economic Association, to give us a few words.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yoon Kim, chairman of Korea-Japan Economic Association. First of all, I would like to ask for your understanding to proceed my speech with consecutive interpreting to deliver meanings more effectively. Thank you. 안녕하십니까. 한일경제협회 회장 김윤입니다. 지난 몇 년간 심각한 갈등을 겪었던 한일 외교관계가 두 국가 정상의 리더십 발휘로 급속히 호전되었습니다. 갈등이 우려되는 현안이 또 발생하는 경우가 있다 하더라도 가시적인 경제 협력을 더욱 강화하면서 미래를 지향해야 합니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Kim Yoon, Chairman of the Korea-Japan Economic Association. Over the past few years, the diplomatic relations between Korea and Japan have been severely strained. However, it has shown immense improvements thanks to the leadership of two heads of state. Even if issues may cause conflict, it is essential to look into the future by further strengthening tangible economic cooperation between the two nations.
아세안 10개국에 더하여 호주와 뉴질랜드, 또 한국, 일본, 중국이 함께하는 RCEP 체제도 가동되고 있습니다. 지리적, 산업적으로 밀접한 관계에 있는 한일 간의 연계 강화는 세계 경제 및 안보가 매우 불확실한 이때 더욱 중요하다고 생각합니다.
In addition to the 10 ASEAN member countries, Australia, New Zealand, Korea, Japan, and China are part of the RCEP. However, solidifying ties between Korea and Japan, which have close geographical and industrial ties, is even more critical and urgent when the global economy and security are highly uncertain.
아시다시피 한일 양국은 서로 이사를 갈 수 없는 숙명적인 이웃 나라입니다. 더 깊이 서로를 이해하고 경쟁 속에서 협력하며 공생하여야만 합니다. 누가 이기거나 지는 관계가 아니고 공동 번영을 지향하면서 더 나은 세상을 미래 세대에게 남길 책임이 큽니다.
Korea and Japan are faithful neighbors, so it is ever more important to understand each other deeply, cooperate amid competition, and seek harmony. It is not a matter of who wins or loses, but pursuing prosperity. The two nations have a big responsibility to create a better world for future generations.
최태원 회장님의 모두 발언의 취지도 이러한 인식에 바탕을 두고 한일 간의 경제협력체 구상을 제안하신 것으로 이해하고 있습니다. 이러한 문제의식 속에서 양국의 역량 있는 현장의 기업인들이 어떠한 공헌을 해야 할지를 전략적으로 살펴야 합니다.
I believe President Chey proposed the importance of Korea-Japan economic cooperation in his remarks based on such ideas. Business leaders from Korea and Japan should explore how they can contribute to the two countries' betterment.
무엇보다도 핵심 소재, 부품, 장비 및 제품의 전 세계적 공급망에 작은 차질이라도 발생하지 않도록 해야 함이 최우선 과제이지만 또한 고령화, 저출산, 천연자원 부족의 공통의 숙제도 함께 풀어야 하고 미래를 대비한 먹거리에 한일 양국은 협력을 하여야 합니다.
Above all, the utmost priority should be given to ensure there are no issues in the global supply chain of main components, parts, equipment, and products. However, it is vital to focus on solving common challenges such as the aging population, low fertility rate, and lack of natural resources, and cooperate closely to find future growth engines for our survival.
한일 양국은 각각 자국의 미래를 위하여 스타트업을 적극 지원하고 있지만은 양국 간 공동 개발과 협력 체제는 아직 충분하지 못한 듯합니다. 제가 책임을 맡고 있는 한일경제협회와 한일산업기술협력재단은 업종 간의 상담이나 세미나 개최로 한일 신기술 소재에 힘을 기울여 왔습니다.
Korea and Japan are both committed to the future of their respective countries and actively support startups. Yet more work can be done for the joint development and cooperation framework. The Korea-Japan Economic Association and the Korea-Japan Cooperation Foundation for Industry and Technology, for which I'm chairman, have organized cross-industry consultations and seminars to introduce new technologies in Korea and Japan.
스타트업 기업들의 이윤 극대화는 스스로의 실력에 달려 있습니다. 진입 장벽을 낮추고 위험을 최소화시키며 기술을 활용해 주어야 합니다. 또한 실력을 검증받은 스타트업 기업이 서로의 나라에 진출할 수 있도록 창업 및 합작의 기회를 보다 넓게 만들어 주어야 하겠습니다.
Startups should be also able to maximize profits based on their own merits, but it is important to lower barriers to entry, minimize risk, and leverage technology. I also recognize the need to create more opportunities to spur entrepreneurship and joint ventures so that proven startups can start businesses in each other's countries.
이제는 이를 해결하기 위한 구체적인 조치들이 꼭 필요한 시기입니다. 정부나 기성세대의 눈으로는 대안이 보이지 않을 수도 있습니다. 양국의 젊은 세대들이 스터디 그룹을 최 회장께서도 제안했듯이 스터디 그룹을 만들기를 제안하며 어떤 조치들이 가장 절박한지를 철저하게 검토하여 내년에 제안해 주시기를 기대합니다.
Now is the time to take concrete steps to address these challenges. The solutions may be hidden from the eyes of the governments or the older generation. As President Chey said, I also propose that young people from both countries form a study group to explore which measures are the most urgent. And I look forward to hearing what they have to share next year.
마지막으로 새로운 기술의 교류 협력은 신뢰를 바탕으로 하여야만 합니다. 지속이 가능하다는 것을 해야만 지속이 가능하다는 것을 꼭 강조하고 싶습니다. 경청에 감사드립니다.
I'd like to conclude by emphasizing that the exchange and cooperation of new technologies can only be sustainable based on trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It is nice. The Korea-Japan Economic Association is also promoting the startup activities, and also there's a suggestion to have those study group to explore what we can do together. Then I would like to ask Mr. Sato Yasuhiro, who is one of the vice chairs of geidanren, and to give us a few words. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your very kind introduction, Mr. Fuji. Today, I'd like to cover basically 2 points. One is a major environmental change facing us today. And second one is the importance of the global collaboration, especially between Korea and Japan. The first, I'd like to touch upon the major environmental shifts facing us today, and I pick up 3 major issues. First, global fragmentation. For instance, rising geopolitical risk and shifting global balance of power, such as mounting US-China friction and Russia's invasion of the Ukraine, and the conflict between Israel and Hamas, and so on. That's first. And developed nations versus global south, which is the second one. As you know, nowadays, countries in the global south has been asserting themselves politically and economically. So they have different sense of value from the developed countries in terms of such as resource development, and the environment, and human rights, and so on. That's the second sort of the fragmentation. And the third one, growing social division within our societies, such as big government versus small government type of policy struggle, and immigration issues, and widening income and inequality, and so on. So we have at least the 3 big fragmentation we can see now. And second environmental shift is uncertainty about the sustainability of the capitalism has been appreciated recently, such as climate change. We are very close to the point of no return, no turn. And even population distribution, polarization between overpopulation and underpopulation. And third, growing gap between the rich and the poor. According to the World Inequality Report 2022, the richest 10% of the global population owns 76% of the all wealth. Huge difference. And fourth, collapse of the globalism. As you know, United Nations and WTO are almost dysfunctional at this moment. I have just 4 points to talk about the uncertainty of the capitalism. I want to have the 2 more discussion on that. One is the state capitalism versus capitalism based on domestic, diplomatic values. Well, I think there was the huge argument which is better, which is the agile, which is constructive, and so on. Somebody will say that state capitalism, like China, it's much more agile and constructive and sustainable. But when I met the Mr. Jack Ma of the Alibaba a couple of months ago, I raised the question to him. The diplomacy is really essential to have the sustainable growth of the capitalism. He used 2 minutes to answer it, and his answer was that innovation only comes from the freedom. Well, this is a more important, I think, argument talking about the uncertainty of the capitalism. And second part would be, as you know, Miss Rebecca Henderson of the Harvard. She wrote the book, Reimaging Capitalism. She strongly mentioned that we, private sector, has to away from the profit supremacy and toward to the realization of the multi-stakeholder capitalism. She strongly mentioned that. This is the strong, I think, question to private sector at this moment and talk about the sustainability of the capitalism. So that's the second part of the environmental shift. And third one is the significant progress of scientific and technological innovation. Never before in the history of human being has we seen such a revolutionary state-of-the-art scientific and technological developments this moment. These developments are in progress and will have a huge impact, transforming not only the way we live, but also the geopolitical balance. For instance, generative AI and quantum technology, fusion energy, advanced medical technology, and biochemicals, so on. We have to think about the bright side and the dark side of these cutting-edge technologies. Well, these technologies become integrated in a society. We will be confronted with essential and fundamental questions such as, well, does robot rob the job from human being? Or will singularity be realized? Or even more, what does it mean to be human? What is happiness? And what is the meaning of life? These kind of fundamental questions we have to answer to receive the cut-edge new technology. This is coming soon. So, based on the discussion about the major environmental change, I mentioned that. Next, I would like to discuss how to rebuild a sustainable society. I know there are many elements to be touched upon on that, but because of the time pressure, today I'd like to focus on the rebuilding international collaboration and cooperation to repair social divisions, especially the relationship with the Korea and Japan. Well, international collaboration and cooperation will be needed to tackle the aforementioned three major environmental shifts faced us today. And the world needs to work together to realize carbon neutrality and tackle problems related to population and food, for example. In particular, when it comes to tackling geopolitical risks and the increasing necessity to economic security, it is essential that we forge alliance and cooperative relations with like-minded countries. South Korea and Japan are capitalist nations with shared value. So Japan and South Korea are also Asia's most developed nations, as well as being neighbors with a mutual respect for each other's culture. Both countries are facing similar social issues, as Mr. Kobayashi mentioned that, such as declining populations, aging societies, decarbonization, the digital transformation, and the widening gap between the rich and the poor. With a different set of values from the West, Japan and South Korea could potentially play a leading role in Asia and the rest of the world. If Japan and South Korea can use their respective strengths to find solutions to these problems and work together to build a new society, this will make a major contribution to stability and sustainable growth, not only in the two nations, but also in Asia and across the world. So on top of that, lastly, I'd like to touch upon to create the stronger and sustainable collaboration between Japan and South Korea in terms of the concrete measures. One, reconstruction of the global supply chain. Cooperation in the reconstruction of global supply chain for key items related to each country's economic securities, such as collaboration in semiconductor manufacturing, green energy development, including ammonium, something like that, and the production, and food securities, and so on. That's the first one. And second one is that the joint project related to each country's securities, infrastructure. The third one, establishment of the some kind of forum, such as the sharing discussion about the future of human society, to answering the very difficult question I mentioned earlier. Joint discussion in the field of AI, medical science, robotics, and nursing concerning the rule-making and the best way to develop these sectors and how to build societies that promote well-being, for example. That will be the third one. Fourth, expansion of human exchanges that facilitate friendship and mutual understanding. Joint research and human exchanges in academics, more private companies hiring works from the other countries, something like a Japanese firm hiring more South Korea graduates and so on. And expanded cultural exchanges are related K-pops from Korea, Japanese anime and manga, and the movies and the sports such as baseball and footballs and so on. And lastly, fifth, great collaboration in supporting startups. As you may know, Japan is strengthening public and private support for startups. March 2022, Geidanren announced the vision for startup breakthrough. And also, Japanese government announced 2022, November, Startup Development 5-year plan. So on top of that, there are various ways of the collaboration in the area. For instance, mutual utilization of each nation's venture capital, contraction of collaborative relations in the field of human resources development and utilization. Concerted effort to open up markets in our two countries and construct supply chains, and so on. So, at last, I would inform you a current concrete collaboration action between two countries. Gedanlen and the Federation of Korean Industries, we create the co-sponsored funds already. They are promoting joint future-oriented project. So the active utilization and the further expansion of this fund will strengthen the momentum for Japan-South Korea relations. So I'd like to close my remarks today by my favorite words from Imagine, John Lennon. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Oh, it is great. Yeah, great to hear that there's already a co-sponsored fund between Korea and Japan and the partnership, future partnership. So, thank you so much. And when then we would like to listen to the speech by entrepreneurial leaders. And first, I would like to ask Dr. Kim Yoon, especially from your experience in startups and also VCs and so on.
Well, I'd first like to thank you, President Fuji, for inviting me to this very prestigious event. And it's my personal honor and privilege to share the stage with such esteemed and distinguished world leaders. I tell prospective entrepreneurs that startup life is a journey, much like the journey of life. And in some sense, I think our session and our efforts and dialogue and topic is a startup. It's a journey. We're embarking on this journey to break barriers. As a whole, I think Tokyo Forum for the past 5 years has been running as a startup. It's been an entrepreneurial journey that I've been really thrilled to be a part of. Now, each journey has a traveler or travelers, and every traveler has a story. And I think for us, our story is quite special because we're not only breaking barriers in terms of region and language between Korea and Japan, but we're also trying to break the barriers between disciplines such as science, engineering, humanities, and arts. And we're also trying to break barriers and actually connect the current generation with the next generation. So in a lot of ways, I think this forum aims to do that. In terms of breaking barriers, I know a thing or two about artificial intelligence. AI has really been an instrumental part of breaking barriers. It's now breaking barriers of language. I can actually translate my English into Japanese. As a matter of fact, 2 hours ago when I was doing my makeup, I used ChatGPT to translate my demands of how I would like to get my makeup done to a makeup artist in Japanese. And she was absolutely thrilled and mesmerized by the technology. Not only language, but also barriers in terms of culture, barriers between understanding language and video and audio. It's just really falling apart thanks to AI. Now, having said that, AI is also creating barriers between the haves and have-nots. And this is something that we need to understand and properly really address before the technology gets more further mainstream. I think that Korea and Japan have much synergies. And as Chairman Chey and the other speakers have already alluded to, semiconductors, batteries, EVs, and automobiles, pharma, these are all industries that are obvious with respect to calling for synergies between the two regions. I'd like to actually bring up another area, and that's the area of robotics, or automated or autonomous machines. The next generation of the AI revolution will require very, very deep integration between software and hardware and services. And I think the two countries have, immense potential to become a world leader in terms of developing the next AI hardware and developing the next AI robot or autonomous machines. Japan has had decades of extreme excellence in terms of manufacturing. Korea is also really good, but also Korea has also innovated with respect to apps and services. And so if we join forces together, I think we have a really big role to play for the next generation AI products and services. Now, in terms of startups, I think it's mostly pertaining, but I'm excited about bringing together the next generation. The next generation of leaders who are in their own disciplines. I think that we also have a lot to learn from each other as entrepreneurs and as young leaders. I think Korea, the Korean leaders that I've experienced are really good at being agile and having speed and execution. The folks that I met in Japan, they really understand what actually precision is and what the passionate pursuit of perfection is. And I think you need both speed and precision and perfection in order to be very successful in your journey. And I think that the exchange of ideas and also really joining forces and strengths will make both Korean startups and the Japanese startups extremely successful together. Now, lastly, I'd like to mention the why question, because I actually pose this question to a lot of entrepreneurs who want to start this journey or any journey. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are we talking about this particular topic at the Tokyo Forum? And I think it's a very, very important question we need to ask, because in our journey, there will be roadblocks and obstacles. I assure you that there will be a lot of stumbling blocks and impedances to what we want to do. And whenever we meet those challenges, I think it's really beneficial to go back to the why question. And if we really share that vision of why we're doing this, I think that'll help us in our journey together. And also, when I talk about the entrepreneurship journey, I say there's 4 elements of success in any type of startup. It's the team that share a vision, and it's the idea. The idea becomes a product, and then you execute the product in terms of producing, and then it scales as a business. Quite recently, I've actually have been thinking about a 5th element of success. And that 5th element of success is what I call the unforced rhythms of the universe. Some people call it timing or stars aligning or luck. You need that. You need luck and timing. But I think it's more than luck and more than timing. It's actually the rhythms of the world forcing you to do certain things at a certain time. And I think it's a critical juncture for our 2 countries. And I really sincerely hope that we are synced in our rhythms of collaborating in this very, very important phase. If we do this with love for the people in Japan and people in Korea, and moreover, the people in the world and humanity, and if we do this out of love for that, as opposed to hatred or fear, I have no doubt that the 2 countries can join forces and really, empower the next generation to think about making the ordinary things extraordinary, and also making the impossible feats possible. I'm really looking forward to the conversation on that one. Yeah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, now we hope now it's kind of, so we're in a kind of good rhythm for doing things together and then to make the world better. So that's really, important suggestion or important input. And then I would like to ask Ms. Horie Ari, who's promoting women's entrepreneurial activities in Silicon Valley, and for a speech in that context. Yeah.
Okay.
Please, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for having me. Many of today's discussion are based on a lot of academic as well, and I thought about what might be interesting. And what I do is about bringing in the power of creation and innovation to all ages and all gender. Once upon a time, 10 years ago, I was pursuing edutech startup in Silicon Valley. While I was still focusing on my startup, I noticed number of women entrepreneurs were out there trying to get their idea across the room. However, the room, 90% of audience, this case is engineer, were male. And they were at that time was more interested in getting a technology to tell us which bar has the prettiest girl at this moment in the real time. While it's exciting and it's fun idea, on the other hand, I saw a number of women, and let's say over 40, who has a vast experience and they wanted to solve the real problem, and they couldn't get the traction. And when I saw that, it's not that I wept for women, I wept for our future, for our next generation. What if all those ideas hasn't been understood and realized? What are our future with the technology is going to be? While we talk about power of AI, we also have to remember where our voices are reflected, implemented, and heard to really bring the power of innovation that make our life a lot more easier and happier and healthier. Everybody has both a hand, and when we do business, we type with both hands. We shake hands one hand, but we both need hands to make things happen. We have eyes that we keep our eyes open to see the opportunity and learn what's going on in the world, but not having, let's say, women in a part of innovation conversation is like you getting your hands out, shaking hands for the business, but one other eye is covering your eyes, not be able to see. Would you like to do the business like this? Perhaps not. Because we have both ends, both sides, and everything we can to create amazing future with the technology in the way that everybody's voices are reflected. Recently, I was surprised to find out 30% of our common technology that we use were created for the people who can't see or they have a paralyzed body. And we often think that, well, those are minority peoples, and those technologies just for those people who's blind or people who can't hear. Well, guess what? All those technology now, 30% are everyday technology that we use. As we advance our culture and understanding, and coming from where I am, Silicon Valley, it's very, very competitive. And being women and being Asian, sometimes I feel like I'm not seen. But what I have found out, the places out here in Asia or even Europe, people do value the reflection of different thoughts. As we gather today and reflecting the startup and innovation, and seniors who might have longer years to pursue, what a wonderful time for us to have a technology that it's so easy, so cost-effective that we can create new business. And that's what I do in the Silicon Valley right now with a group of women entrepreneurs who gather around the world who try to pursue their dream to make a difference in the world. And so, yes, it's not about women. It's not about just the gender. But it's really creating a world we all benefit when everybody's voice are heard and translated into innovation and into our life. And so today, I wanted to share some of knowledge, such as less than 3% of venture fund are currently going to women entrepreneurs after all those years. Now imagine having 100 talented young people and only 3 are funded. And I happen to be a woman. 93% of venture capitalists, which is bright, well-meaning, educated people, are men. And even if I try to understand the best of my knowledge to understand the people that doesn't look like me, I will probably fail short on understanding their needs and the struggle. And so to truly create an inclusive, optimized world with who we are as for the younger generation, I think we have to design a society, our culture, and value and a policy that allow us to have those voices to be heard without saying, let's be inclusive. So that's kind of a challenge. I think we will continue to have a discussion, and thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, that's a very important idea that we need to share with together with in between, not only in between Korea and Japan, but also throughout the world.
Yes.
So, thank you so much. And finally, thank you so much for your patience. Professor Shigeo Kagami, and who's one of the pioneers in our university in the domain of entrepreneurial education. So that you can, please give us a few words in that context.
Well, thank you so much indeed. I'm pretty much honored to be a part of this great panel. As a professor of innovation entrepreneurship at the Graduate School of Engineering, I strongly believe, as Mr. Sado indicated, that entrepreneurs, maybe startups, might play more important critical roles at the time of uncertainty and the dramatic changes in the world, I think. Let me talk a little bit about what I call an ecosystem in the campus of University of Tokyo. Believe it or not, we have our own venture capital arm, dedicated to University of Tokyo, by the way, University of Tokyo Edge Capital Partners, University of Tokyo Innovation Platform. Altogether, 1.5, depending on the foreign exchange rate, but again, almost over $1 billion in size, the fund available for entrepreneurs and startups. So pretty much, I think, a big fund. And also, we are running incubation facility within the campus. We have 2 incubation facilities within, in the Hongo campuses. Currently, I think 50, 60 companies are being incubated by us. One facility that was, open operation, and back in the year 2007, I remember, made possible by the wealthy individual, the gift from the wealthy individual to create a incubation facility in the campus. And also, we put lots of importance on entrepreneurship education program. And I started the program called University of Tokyo Entrepreneur Dojo. Dojo is like a judo practice, and we started 1 year after what we call incorporation of National University back in 2004. Dojo is a very basic sort of flagship entrepreneurship education program. In the year of 2020, when COVID-19 came into, because we are able to use a web conference system without having so much constraint to a classroom, the number of students enrolled in the program exceeds more than, I think, 700. Entrepreneurship education program, that is a starting point. But again, we have now more than 50 entrepreneurship education program available for the students. One program for freshmen, one program for freshmen and sophomore in the Komaba campus, one program for professors, graduate school students, and maybe postdoctoral researchers. So different kinds of programs available for students right now, even for the professors. So we have now many important components of the University of Tokyo. I strongly believe that University of Tokyo had been a great producer of a high-ranking government official for ministries, and we are also producing lots of talented engineers to the industry. But I strongly believe now is the time for us to produce very talented individuals who are challenging the problems facing us as entrepreneurs. I may say, startup company is is the most important channel. But again, all the people, even the researcher and the business people, should be entrepreneurial enough. So you come up with the problem you would like to solve, and then you're trying to come up with the new, great, innovative ideas, and comparing the existing solutions. And you believe that the new idea, which could be more beneficial to the society. Always you have to be more entrepreneurial, adjective rather than noun. So again, now is the time for us to do that at the University of Tokyo, and I would be more than happy to answer any kind of questions about startup entrepreneurship. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry. entrepreneurial mind is not only for startups, but
That's right.
also for many aspects in business and whatever. So, as we have limited time here, so I'd like to go back to the main topic of the session. That is how we, between Korea and Japan, can collaborate with each other for the future of the global economy. And in that aspect, first of all, I just would like to go back to Chairman Chey. So, for give us some inputs, I'll listen to all of these speeches by the panelists. Do you have?
Okay, well, we can talk about our cooperation things and things we used to do it and we could do it in the future. But actually, I'm focused on a much more the economic collision. So we can actually tackle down that each area, industries, and maybe what we like to share about how we start with it, how we can make the somewhat strong idea to make a startup environment between the two countries. If we need to add up some more skills and the fund and the technologies, we could actually build that on another level of the Silicon Valley. So especially I have actually some idea for making our own, I don't know, Korea, Japan type of LLM models, using that based on that LLM, so we could actually benefit to our own AI models, and it's actually independent to the other tech giant. So that's a kind of possibility we can think about. But if it's too big, then we can think about, Korea, Japan is very strong with the manufacturing side. So why don't we target on just the manufacturing side of the AI? So AI is not only just, these days of ChatGPT and everybody just jump into the LLM type of things, but there is another application for that our own the benefit, especially benefit for that two countries, and we share that a lot of the manufacturing. In order to that, actually we bring that a lot of data for that the manufacturing side, and once we make all the environment, we could actually making that another different type of level of the AI side. So there is much more the idea, but I'd like to hear that two persons and maybe they have better ideas.
Okay, so then I'd like to ask you about your suggestion or directions that we can go, and that might be of course, all this, collaboration in the business development and also technological development and so on. Then if you have something, yes?
Well, as a professor of innovation entrepreneurship, as Mr. Sato indicated, I think an exchange of students and younger entrepreneurs might, go and come, and particularly I think in a combined team of Korean young people and Japanese young people to work together to try to solve the problem facing the globe. I think that is a fundamental important thing for us. So again, we come up with some sort of programs available for young people, Korea and Japan. And also, secondly, we both like baseball. And actually, my name is Shigeo, named after Shigeo Nagashima, professional baseball player in Japan. But again, we were talking about the Shohei Ohtani, the Japanese baseball player. He's very great, in the United States. But why Ohtani Shohei is so great? Because he's working on a great player in a major league. So again, both Korea and Japan, we have great little league or also professional teams, and also even high school championships. But somehow, the major league is sort of a great place. So we have somehow our system is connected with a major league. In a startup world, a global ecosystem. Korea and Japan work together to connect the entrepreneurs here in Korea and Japan, linked up with the global ecosystem, particularly the bioscience, life science, and a U.S. marketplace is so huge. I think we need somehow connect us with the US, North American ecosystem together. So that might be a very important thing for us.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then next, yes, Mr. Sato, please.
Okay, thank you. I think we Japanese entrepreneur has the three, I think, disadvantage. One is that the lack of the angel investors. Second one is that no mentors to teach them. And third one is very important. They are aiming to have the success in only domestic market. They are not aiming to have the global success. But on the other side, Korea is very different because they have relatively small landscape and also they have relatively small population. They start the business to have the global market from the beginning. We have to learn a lot from the attitude of the Korean startups, something like Otani-sensei and so on. So I think that this collaboration in terms of the startups between two countries be quite constructive to Japanese startups, I believe that.
Thank you, thank you. So is there any, suggestion from two of your entrepreneurs in
I do appreciate Mr. Sato's comments on the difference between Japanese and Korean startups when we're viewing and looking at it from the perspective of can we globalize, can we actually build a product from day one that addresses the market worldwide. And although I have to say I would agree with Mr. Sato's comments that perhaps Korea is better than Japan, I'm still not satisfied. As a matter of fact, I'm very frustrated with Korean startups that pretend that they're global, but they do not think about markets such as Japan from day one. We're basically neighbors. We share a lot in common. Yet there is trepidation and I think just really just not really an active attitude towards looking at something beyond Japan, Korea. So I think that one of the things that I want to see is whether we can do a roadshow of prominent startups in Korea and Japan, and also incubate ideas from the get-go that look at those two markets together so that it is not a serial process of a Japanese startup being successful and then it bringing its products and services to Korea and vice versa. But from day one, we think about this alliance of Korea, Japan, and maybe we can add other countries as we go along, because the market size, if you add them, is quite significant. And I think that by doing that, you force the entrepreneurs into thinking about more than one market from day one. So it would be great to have a roadshow or an event that actually houses, and we can even do a competition of startups from both the University of Tokyo and Seoul National University and KAIST and major universities, as well as really aspiring and budding entrepreneurs who have great ideas that can turn into greater ideas when it's applied to different markets.
Oh, great. Maybe we could also do that with a mixed team.
That'd be awesome. That's even better.
That'd be good, yeah. Okay, please, Hori-san.
When we talk about the startup, we tended to focusing on the business idea. But just like we were born as a human being, we learn to walk and then start talking. And I think it's important that we keep our mind clear, that we don't get so stuck in the end result and then suffocate earlier stage company, asking for every answer for them to have or talk about the success. They need the time to play. They need the time to explore. And then what's most important is that they continue to be curious and trying to get what's really needed in the market that are valuable. And so while we talk about the startup and entrepreneurship, I think we need to do a lot of a collaboration where creating something that matters in the world is fun and not focusing on just the result from the get-go. Let's enjoy you are individual, you can make a difference. Let's enjoy coming up a project. In Asian culture, we tended to be really polite and afraid to burden other people. There's a lot of things that we've been taught that actually very much against entrepreneurship. Part of the Silicon Valley, they don't care at the beginning. They're just going to fly and jump off. So I think the growing a spirit is a part of it, and then nurture into startup. But let's explore how we can create a value, and it would be great if we can do something like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's also the very nice idea. Yeah, especially for the, young generation, and so for them to come up with a kind of something that they want to do and that they want they see as a kind of problem or issue that they want to solve, and then that might be a,
And a failure is not a failure.
right. No, so yeah, okay. Perhaps Chairman Kim Yoon, do you have any ideas on this domain?
네, 스타트업에 관해서는 저는 그 한일 간의 스타트업 교류 협업은 훨씬 이 웨스턴 컨트리에 비교해서 훨씬 쉽다고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 우선 그 문화나 정서가 비슷하고 또 이게 시니어리티 그 사회가 아닙니까? 그래서 우리가 우리 한일경제협회에서 하는 프로그램 중에서 고교생 그 익스체인지 프로그램이 있습니다. 거길 일주일 동안 와서 서로 교류하면서 먹는데 헤어질 때는 서로 울어요.
So compared to the Western countries, I believe that it's much easier for the startups in Korea and Japan to have room for exchange. That's because both countries share similar cultures, and we also have a concept of seniority. And at the Korea-Japan Economic Association, we also have an exchange program where businesses can come together for 1 week, and when they have to go home, they actually cry because they have to say goodbye.
그래서
Sorry, just sorry for interrupting you. Mr. Sato have to leave now, so
Thank you
for
very
the
much.
sake of time. So
Thank you very much.
thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. Okay, so please,
그래서
keep going.
아마 이 양국 간의 스타트업 교류는 훨씬 이 가능성이 높다고 그렇게 생각을 합니다.
So I believe that the exchange between the Korea and Japan startups will be much easier than other countries.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you. It's a kind of good example. So, well, then, so looking back to today's discussion, and we started off from the kind of new model suggested by Chairman Chey, and then so that is basically spanning from the kind of large scale, for example, energy system and so on. So talked about EV batteries and so on, and then all these like quite a large scale industries, but also we have come down to the kind of coalition in domain of this startup, and so there should be kind of quite different layers for our collaboration. So that in that sense, so. And also there was a suggestion to set up a kind of study group from Chairman Kim Yoon, so that so it might be interesting for us to set up such kind of platform in the frame of this Tokyo Forum and between Korea and Japan, and then involving this younger generation as well as the business domain and also entrepreneurial people, and so that might be so I think that might be a good idea. So that if you have any suggestions, we could set up that.
University of Tokyo is now the largest producer of university startups. We have now almost over 500 startups already on an accumulated basis. University of Tokyo is now number one for that. But again, still, as I indicated, globalization is a very important thing. And secondly, I think for the deep tech startups, I think we need more talented individual who could be candidacy for CEO. Of the much more business-driven people. Well, in that sense, I think big companies as a pool of talents, right? And in Japan, I think Korea possibly. But again, once Peter Drucker, famous management consultant, management author, said that Japan is a country but organized in mobility. So that means, I think, a mobility of people from big industry to small startups. Again, that kind of mobility seems to be a very important area for improvement. I just wonder whether for that particular area we have much in common in Korea and Japan. I think we might come up with some sort of a, same sort of agenda between the two countries. Am I right?
Right.
I think so. I think that we share a lot of problems that can be solved together in a better way. I mean, from education to elderly to environment to social issues.
And cross-generation.
Absolutely, yeah. And also mental health is a great problem for people who are digitally native. And I think we can do great things together to solve those types of problems.
All this is great, yeah. So in that aspect, what we can do, so then also that, mobility thing is also leading to the idea that Horie-san mentioned, having, so for the younger generation to have time to think about what they really want to do, or what is really needed in the world to do, and so yeah.
Solving a problem that matters to the people and creating value is the core of entrepreneurship. And so rather get going right on the funding and success and exit, I think most important and really looking at the problem and letting people to enjoy really solving a problem and be able to do that in any generation now. It wasn't possible before, but because of technology, it's possible.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So that's really important. So that how also we could support this kind of platform in between the countries or in between the business sectors. So yes, Chairman Chey.
Yes. Well, different business probably with different environment. So if there's an energy collision, then we cannot just avoid that. We had under some kind of regulations. Also finance and some of the industry has to have that there was some under the regulation, and that under regulation is actually, two countries are different. So we need some study then if we change it, or the common rule to how to bring that all those things in a certain area, not whole things and at once a time, but if we targeting some things like, let's just say that the gas, we actually Korea, Japan is the largest LNG market in the whole world. If we combine it together, so the purchasing and the usage, if as a kind of a demander, but in a purchaser, so we could actually have that much more the negotiation power to the actually seller type. So it's a kind of monopoly power to the other areas. So if we design that, and we could actually fix that some of the rules, and who actually willing to buy that, and then Korean and Japan side has to actually come up with that somehow that we can utilize that the purchasing power. So things is so narrow down of some of things, but if we targeting some of the synergistic impact, then it's much more easier, and there is no one lose, and everybody just benefit, and it's much more the easy things and we could think about. But energy transitions, we have to change some of the rules and everything, but to separate the energy market right now, if we make it the one, I think that there is much more the synergies in the long run, but we need that a lot of different type of the regulation and our own the internal rules of the world that industry. So it need actually the much more the talks. But we've been even talking about some even refinery things, even oil side. we have to actually shrink down that the refinery capacities and everything, and how we're going to do it. And if we combine it together, and if we internally using it as a kind of one market philosophy, and we could have that much more efficient model to how to reduce the refinery things, and how we can actually raise up the renewable energies together. So that's another matters. But internally, we could actually bring that all those the synergistic ideas. And also, I can actually talk about go on and the semiconductor, the battery side, more automobiles. There are so many agendas. So there's a two-way to actually doing the pre-study on the suggestion to our each government is, well, it's the president, you just suggested our joint study groups between that, well, the Korean side and the Tokyo side, well, we could targeting on a some kind of subject, and probably next year that we're gonna actually open up all those new suggestions and to the
in a session,
in a session, but it's going to be suggested to the both government, and it'll be much more efficient. And also, actually had a cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce in the Japan side. So we agree upon that. We also added some kind of pre-study on each synergistic areas of the industry. So we could come up with some better ideas. And also we can suggest that the small and medium companies, corporation, and the startup things. There's so many things we could do it together. Right.
Okay, thank you so much. It is, I mean, not just the kind of technology itself, but also all these, I mean, the rules and the systems, and like a kind of to make a kind of synergistic effect over the like a global market. So that's a very important point. Okay, thank you so much. So then, so finally, I'd like to thank all the panelists and speakers here, and then also we could hope we will set up this, I mean, study group in between Korea and Japan, and I hope to be able to make a kind of report in hopefully next year's Tokyo Forum. So that might be the conclusion. Thank you so much.